and welcome to the Author Roundup, a special segment of the Book Connection Show where we meet up and coming indie authors and talk to them about their recently released books. Hello, and welcome to the Author Roundup. I'm your host, Jenny. Today, we explore the world of angels through the enlightening book Angels Everywhere. Author Ilona Kukurs Reid takes us on a journey into understanding the nature of angels, how their consciousness differs from our own, and the ways they can guide us in our daily lives. With a career that began in psychology, Ilona has worked with children and later directed postgraduate counseling programs that integrated transpersonal, transcultural, and spiritual approaches. Her dedication to lifelong learning has taken her to international conferences and retreats. Now retired and based in the Adelaide Hills, South Australia, she has turned her focus to creative writing and art. Through her work, Ilona offers insights that are both practical and deeply inspiring, showing how angels can be sources of hope, guidance, and inner peace in our everyday lives. Join us as we step into a conversation about resilience, spiritual growth, and the extraordinary presence of angels all around us. Welcome to the show, Ilona. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I'm glad to be here.
And I'm so excited to talk to you about your book. So tell us about Angels Everywhere. What first inspired you to write your book?
Well, I would have to say that my journey with writing this book started when I was a child, even though I did not know at that stage that I would ever write a book about angels. But my grandmother on my mother's side, she talked about angels a lot. I remember her talking about angels, and she used to read her Bible and she took everything very literally. So for her, angels were real. It was God was real. There was no question because she was of that generation where everything was real. And then later on, I started to develop an interest in angels myself I was about 40 then, I think, um, or round about 40 years of age, I started to get into studying transpersonal psychology, which means that the psychology goes up to through the levels of the physical side of things, material side of things, and then it goes to the emotional side, and then it goes to the cognitive, the thinking. What are you thinking? Can you hear your own thoughts? And then beyond that, it's self-realization, like Maslow talked about self-realization, and that's the spiritual side. And usually that doesn't get taught in psychology, but I was very interested in it, so I included that in the range of teaching in counseling and psychology. And it was to postgraduate students, so these were people already who were nurses and who were teachers and who were social workers and so on. So, and that's where then dreams of angels started happening. So there were many moments that were important in that whole journey of writing about angels.
Mhm. I see. And that's very interesting what you shared. So it goes way back in your life. And then at one point, it became sort of like a something that you would really start to do. But was there a specific life experience or spiritual moment that became the seed for this particular book?
Well, for this particular book, I would have to say it was a friend's comment. I had started drawing angels. I always liked drawing. I liked children's books that had lovely coloured drawings, and so I always loved books. I always loved drawing, but I never felt that perhaps that I was good enough to draw angels. I put angels on a pedestal, and I thought, no, only very special people like Leonardo da Vinci could draw angels, or Botticelli, or someone like that. But not just someone like me. But I was so drawn to it, I started sketching them and I started drawing them, and then I started putting them on my mobile and sending them to some of my friends. And some of them really liked those images. And one of the friends, who's a very spiritual woman, she said, "Why don't you go public with this? Why don't you publish something?" And that wasn't like, it was a spiritual moment in that she voiced what was in me to do, but I hadn't come to that point without hearing it from her. So I would have to say that that was the moment that catapulted me into the whole idea of creating a book.
I see. So it just needed to be verbalized by someone who is close to
Yes,
you, but the interest of writing a book about angels is already there.
yes, and I had been writing in my journal about about angels, or in fact, I chose at one stage when there were a lot of personal difficulties. I wanted clarity, and angels, there are, they stand for different kind of um, qualities, like clarity or peace, and what I wanted was clarity. So I called this angel Claire, and just my own name for her. And I started writing to her as part of my journaling. So
Mm.
I was already writing about it. I was already making a friend of an angel, but I hadn't thought of publishing or going public with it at all until my friend said, "Why don't you do that?" She said,
Okay.
"The world needs it." That's what she said.
I see. So, your book presents angels as deeply
Yes,
connected to human experience. And you
yes.
said, if you look into your life, you were searching for clarity and you turned to angels, right? So, how did that perspective about the connection between human experience and angels, how did that perspective develop for you?
Well, that was something I chose to do in the way I structured my book,
Mm,
because I was thinking, I'm not, even though I've spent years and years of reading about angels, drawing angels, experiencing angels, would I call myself an expert on it? There are a lot of, I have almost a library of angel books, and so many people have written about it. But I thought the only way I can approach a book of my own is to focus on my personal experience with angels, because in that area, I am an expert. I do know what my own experiences are. And when I read a book, or when I listen to interviews on YouTube about angels and spiritual matters, I always think about it in terms of, how do I relate to what they're saying? How is my experience? And I thought, well, that's what I'd like the reader to be able to do, to relate to what I'm saying about my experience of angels, my knowledge and experience of angels, and see how it fits with their personal experience. And maybe even get some people who are kind of hesitant about approaching the whole subject of angels, like I was to begin with, that maybe they get some confidence if they can see themselves reflected in my experiences.
Ilona, you also write about the difference between ordinary human consciousness and angelic consciousness. How do you define that difference?
I think the best way to define it is in terms of love. Angels are unconditionally loving. There is no experience you can have, no feeling you can have, no behavior you can exhibit, no class that you belong to, or a racial group or religious group, or that would make any difference to an angel.
Mm.
An angel loves you no matter what. Whereas human beings tend to be rather conditional about their love, and they have preferences, like if you're well educated, or if you have a lot of money, or if you're in this religion or that religion, or no religion at all, or like there are judgments that are made by human beings, there are comparisons made by human beings, there are expectations that human beings have of each other, so that if you do that, that means that you love me or I love you. If you don't do that, that means I don't love you. I'm very unhappy with you and I don't love you. And so people are never quite sure in that area about where they stand with others, and often get a negative self-perception from all that because of misunderstandings. That doesn't happen with angels. Angels are from God. They are totally loving no matter what. So there are
Unconditional love.
unconditional love, unconditional regard for the person, respect for the person. Um, and love has many meanings, but it's the unconditional nature of angel experience, of angels as they are experienced, that makes the big difference.
I see. So, what I also noticed in your book is that it reveals ideas gradually. So, almost in like gentle illuminations rather than just one complete explanation. Was that a conscious choice in how you wanted readers to experience it?
Exactly right. That's exactly how I wanted it to be. So that in the structure of the book, the sequencing of both the images, so it's one image, one page of writing next to each other, and then next image, next piece of writing. So I start off with more informational prose, and then I go on gradually through to more mystical, more inner experiences, and that's where the poetry comes in. And I wanted people who were not so familiar with angels, but were kind of interested, but skeptical, to feel that they were welcome, as well as people who have angel experiences and they can say, "Oh, I've had that experience," or I didn't realize that was part of it, but I've had other experiences, and so I wanted people to feel welcome and to be able to relate to what I'm saying.
With that in mind, how did you decide what to include and what to leave out when writing about such a vast spiritual subject?
You're right, it is a vast subject. And I had, that was a difficult one. And I had far more things that I wanted to say and much more material than I could include, because I had decided right at the beginning that I would have about 100 pages in the book. That means 50 images, 50 pieces of writing. And so I definitely had to exclude things. And so I had to kind of ask for guidance, really, from the angels. The images were easy because the ones that I had, I could have filled 3 books of images, but the ones that wanted to be chosen, if I can use that kind of language, they were brighter. They kind of said, pick me. It was like I knew which ones that I wanted to use easily. And that was a sort of an inner sense. But to my eyes, it actually looked brighter. And with the words, sometimes it was the image that prompted the words. And sometimes I looked for an image that would fit with the words because I wanted to convey some information. So at the beginning, it was like introducing the main themes and introducing some of the angels, and then developing that and going more inwardly as I went along. And so there was that idea of involving just about anybody who was slightly interested in angels in the process. And so that you could open the book at any point and just look at it. It's not, although there is a sequence and a sort of a narrative, it's not like a novel or not like an information book with chapters. There is a flow in it from beginning to end that is deliberate. And I had to keep going back to what's essential, what is it that I really want to say. And that's kind of was a measuring stick for me, an internal measuring stick.
I see. So you did say earlier that you had to seek spiritual guidance, right? To know what to include and what to leave out and all that. Can you tell us more about those moments and also about your creative process regarding your angel art?
Okay, well, perhaps this is a good time for me to just introduce my book and show you a couple of pictures by way of answering. So That's the actual book, Angels Everywhere. Ilona Kukurs Reid, as you said, and the middle name is my family of birth name. Um, and one of the examples that is a favorite of mine is called The Angel of Freedom. Now, I'll try and show it to you.
That's beautiful.
So that's the image for the Angel of Freedom. And I'll just read you the poem that
Yeah,
dropped
go ahead.
into my head. Now that's how I get some of my guidance. The ideas or the poem comes complete, it just drops into my head. And this, I'll just read the last four lines. When one is home, the earth is home, and celestial realms are also home. So the whole theme of home is extremely important in my spiritual journey, as well as in my personal life journey, because I was born on the other side of the world. And it was quite a journey to get here to Australia and to resettle here. It was after the war, and we were in Germany for 4 years. I was born in Latvia, but we had to be in Germany as political refugees for 4 years, and that was a difficult time. And then we came to Australia when I was 8. So this has been, and so the sense of home and where is it, and is the world my home, and do I belong with the angels? These are all questions that have been real for me at different times in my life.
When you read your poem, I noticed that you use language that welcomes many kinds of readers. Was it important to you that the book feels open to people from different beliefs and backgrounds?
Yes, that was essential, really, very important. Partially, it was because that is an angelic perspective, to be inclusive, not to exclude anyone. Again, coming back to the differences in human and angelic consciousness, human beings are very exclusive. They say, this is my group, I belong in it. You don't belong in it. You belong to a different group, whether it's a national group, a racial group, a religious group, a sports group. We all kind of, it's a tribal kind of point of view. Whereas the inclusiveness goes with unconditional love. You don't exclude anyone. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is a human being. Everyone is a child of God. There's no difference. And just the other day, I was reading something about the genetic codes that were taken from thousands of people. And what they were saying was that human beings, even in the same race, can have greater differences between them than people in different races. In other words, race has got nothing to do with the human genetic code at all. And we have a fair amount of genes that are exactly the same as a banana,
Mhm.
or so it's not just are we have we evolved from chimpanzees. There's this huge connectedness, and all those differences between human beings and human groups, they're just unreal. They have no reality based to them, and the angels pay no attention to that at all. So inclusivity is part of the behavioral part of that you realize that you're speaking to another person who's got the God light within them. And
Mhm.
that the Buddhists say, and other people say namaste. They say, I salute the light within you, which is to say, I recognize you as a child of God, the same as I am. There's no difference between us.
That's a very beautiful message. And also, one thing noticeable about your book is that there is a very strong message of healing and inner peace all throughout the book. Were you also writing this book for your own healing in some way?
I wrote the book in order to consolidate what I had to offer to others for their healing, and that they might find of help. My healing has continued after the book. It was started long, long before the book was ever thought of. And a lot of my healing work was done in journal work, but I went to very many workshops and very many spiritual retreats, and over the years, and in many parts of the world. So my healing journey kind of came to an end when at the emotional level, it came to an end when I finished my work at the university, and that's when I joined a creative writing group because I've always wanted to write a book, and I've had a different kind of experiences with trying to write. And what happened was that I got more and more into the angelic kind of
Mm,
experiences with the meditation and so on. And that has continued. And I have to say that one of the things that happened with regard to healing journey at this stage where I've finished the book is that just doing this interview, suddenly I had this great anxiety come up about it. And it was very linked to childhood patterns of going to a strange country where I didn't know the language, I didn't know how things worked. I was very quiet, shy, introverted child, and several different experiences at different times in my life, right through to young adulthood, came up in my memory with this great anxiety. And so it was like the work of healing continues, probably lifelong. And up came all these things that I had to deal with in order to be here talking to you. And it was a good thing, and it was very clear that these were feelings that were still trapped in my body as body memory from the time that I had these experiences. And now it was time to release that and to get beyond that. So the journey goes on. But during the book, I was focusing more on what it was I wanted to communicate rather than on the journey itself, because I
mm.
think I was kind of ready for it. I'd been getting ready for a long time.
Did writing this book change your own understanding of angels?
It did actually. I'd forgotten that I wrote to Claire, my angel, and did a lot of journal work, and she was my friend, and she kept me going when I had difficulties in the work situation and so on. And writing the book reminded me that angels can be our friends. And I realized in my research that I did before starting to write, and as I was contemplating what was important to say, I realized that I hadn't quite taken archangels off their pedestals, and I was still thinking that they could never be a personal friend, even though an angel like Claire or an angel of love or compassion or wisdom, they could be your friend. But that an archangel like Archangel Michael or Archangel Raphael, the healer, that was kind of like going to a doctor or to an authority or something like that. And I realized that that was very outdated thinking. And it was time to kind of come into this century and realize that there's no hierarchy among the angels. So why am I giving them hierarchy where one is one can be more powerful, but no power over another? They give us total free will, and well, they've got no option. We were given free will. Our souls had free will right from the time we incarnated, and so yes, the archangels are just as accessible and just as everywhere as other angels are.
So this time, Ilona, I would like to look into your experience as an author. Once the writing was complete, what was the publishing journey like from manuscript to the finished book?
The publishing was and is challenging for me because that's another new territory that I was mentioning, like doing Zoom for me and doing a Zoom interview, totally new experience, never done it before. And the whole online publishing that I got into, because I chose self-publishing, was a very new territory, even with its own language. There were both the technical language to do with computers, and I have like infant grade level of competence at computer stuff. There was a very steep learning curve. And to communicate only online and not personally, and many people not having the time or inclination, I don't know, to telephone, but they're in another country, like you're in another country. And so you can't talk to them personally. Um, and sometimes you find someone who's got the time and is willing to answer your questions and talk. But online is a whole different environment. And so
Mhm.
for me, that was and I'm still learning. I'm
Mhm.
still learning. Fortunately, I love learning. So, that's the good part of it.
Mhm. So would you say that's the biggest challenge that you faced to bring your book into publication, the having to do it online?
Yes, having to do the process online and not being able to talk to people face to face, and just, in my work environment, I walked down the corridor and there were offices of people everywhere, and I could talk to people. And if I didn't know how to do something, I could go to the administrators, or I could go to a colleague, or, but this is a different world for me. But it wasn't a challenge in other ways because I chose self-publishing, and so um, I had a lot of say in how I wanted things done and what I wanted my book to be like. There were certain restrictions, of course, but it wasn't. Yes, it was the process of just being in this. It was like being another strange country again, where I didn't know the language and I had to learn it all over again. And what I knew before didn't seem to be so relevant. It was, so I was lost again. So the old patterns came up again. But anyway, as I say, I'm I'm always ready to learn, so I'm
Yeah.
happy with that.
Mhm. So all the experience itself was very new to you. Did you learn something new about yourself as well when you were going through the publishing process?
I did. I've learned a lot of things about myself. One of them is that I need to be very honest and assertive. That is to say, if I don't like something, to say so, and to be clear about what I say, how I want my book and how I want it arranged, and so it's all inbuilt. There are forms for making corrections, and and you've got another form for the final approval and all of that. But getting used to that was very hard for me, that it was organized in that kind of structured way, but without communication in between, because sometimes I didn't know what they meant or
Mm,
what they were asking. And so I had to learn to be very observant and not just think, oh, that's too hard. They know what they're doing, and then find out that we had miscommunicated, and I got the wrong idea, or they didn't understand what I was saying.
mhm,
So I think speaking up for myself was one of the big lessons.
mm. Yes. So, what advice would you give to other authors who are also writing something that's deeply personal or spiritually rooted books?
Well, what first comes to my mind is I would advise that a new author join a creative writing group or a writing group. That's what I did. And I was in one for 10 years, and it didn't really apply to this book, but it I wrote another book before that, and that was a family history book. And that's where I got the idea of actually publishing, was when I was in this writing group, because could we were given homework, and I used to pick on different episodes from my family life and family history. And we would read them to each other and we'd comment on them, and it was a very supportive group. And then it occurred to me, oh, I've got so many episodes that maybe they could be chapters of a book. And that's how I found the writing group. I was very fortunate to be in a very good group and very supportive, and plenty of sharing and so on. So I'd say that's one thing. The other thing I would say is for the writer to be true to themselves and true to their own experience, and to write in their own words. And that's, I think, speaking up and using your true voice is very important. Writing about what you know helps that, because it's if it's your experience, um, and it's an area that you know and that you feel very passionate about, then that's a good area to write about, using your own words.
Mhm. I see. So those are two very valuable advice that you can give to authors who are just, or writers who are just starting out and who
Yeah.
dream of becoming authors themselves. So your book has been out for some time now. I know you have been receiving some feedback about your book. What has been the most meaningful response or feedback that you've received from your readers so far?
Well, so far, and I'm pleased to report the kind of feedback that I've had, which has, been very positive. And one of the things that I really like is when people report that they were moved in some way, even moved to tears, that they could relate to some of the content in in a way that really moved them to the soul, that it spoke to them, they could resonate with it, and that they found it helpful. The other thing that I've heard back is that people like to go back to the book. It's not really a book designed to read. They'd read it from cover to cover usually to begin with, but then they'd go back and were drawn to certain images or certain pieces of writing, and then they could reflect on it and sort of use it almost like an oracle card deck, to where you pick a card and it tells you something about yourself, or
Yeah.
what's important for me for today. And
Mm-hmm.
you open it up and there's the angel of peace, or the angel of love, or the angel of wisdom. So um, the other thing, or the third thing, is when people say they enjoyed the book so much that they decided to give a couple of copies to their grandchildren, or to their daughter, or to their relative, or to a friend. And so that sort of word of mouth, I think, is very good. I like that.
Mhm. Must have been amazing hearing that kind of feedback from your readers, because that's what you want to your book to do, right? Like connect. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yes.
So what's next for you and your book Angels Everywhere now?
Well, the next exciting step is nearly ready. Uh, it's the development of a web page, that is a web page for the book, which
Mhm.
also includes a blog, which also gives the opportunity not only to give information about the book, but also to engage with readers or potential readers or someone who's interested in angels about angels. And that's the blog part. And I'm very interested in developing some communication. What I've told you so far is been from personal contacts, people I know. They may not live in Adelaide, they might live in a different state in Australia, or even in a different country, and so it's by text messages and so on. But I've also joined an angel group that has quite a large following, and an author whose books I love about angels. And I've found that relating to other people who are interested in angels is something I love to do. And I
Mhm.
thought that would be a wonderful thing to develop on my own author webpage through the blog, which is designed just for such a purpose.
That's exciting. And everyone's looking forward to that already. So now that your book, Angels Everywhere, is out in the world for everyone to read, what conversations do you most hope that it starts?
Well, you've actually said it. I really like them to uh, talk about how angels are everywhere. They're right around us all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. And to be able to share um, personal experiences in a way that's accepted by others and which is affirmed for those people who feel unsure that, okay, they've had dreams about angels, or in meditation an angel has come to them, or they've had what they think is angel guidance, but they're not sure. Or is it my own imagination? Can angels really be helping me? And I think that the discussion about angels being there when we need them, because they're there all the time, we just don't necessarily realize it. And we can form a relationship with them, like a friendship, and that we can call on them for help, because that's their mission to in coming to help human beings, that help them both in their personal lives and in the evolution of consciousness, human consciousness as a whole, so that people can become kinder, people can become more empathic, people can become less fearful of each other. These are the kind of future goals that the angels would see for humanity as a whole.
So, Ilona, before we close, please invite everyone to get a copy of your book, Angels Everywhere.
Well, I would love that. I would love it if you got a copy of the book. And the way to do it is online, and you can get it through Balboa Press, which is the company that has published my book, and it's www.balboapress.com.au, which stands for Australia. Of course, it's available in America with Balboa Press as well. And then there's Barnes and Noble. That's another company. And of course, Amazon as well. And there are three types of formats. There's the paperback version, there's the hardback copy, and then there's an ebook. So all of them are available. And there are many other companies that distribute the book, but they are the three main ones that I've mentioned.
And of course, we will be waiting for your website to be ready so our our audience, our listeners, and everyone watching can connect with you online as well. So that concludes our enlightening conversation with our guest, Ilona Kukurs Reid. What an enriching and uplifting discussion. So your insights on angels, inner peace, and spiritual growth, these are truly inspiring. A heartfelt thank you, Ilona, for sharing your time and wisdom with us today. So just like what Ilona has mentioned, if you'd like to explore these ideas further, her book, Angels Everywhere by Ilona Kukurs Reid, is available in softcover, hardcover, and ebook formats at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and the Balboa Press online bookstore. So be sure to grab your copy today. And to all our viewers and listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Author Roundup. We hope today's discussion leaves you inspired, reflective, and ready to embrace the extraordinary in everyday life. See you in the next episode.